We do have our Fox correspondent here. We want to get his reaction to this guilty verdict.
Hi, Larry. Thanks for joining us for your feedback on this case. So three federal charges, found guilty on all of them. How much does that surprise you?
I'm not really surprised that it came back as a fairly quick decision by the jury, because unless they had some issues regarding the credibility of the witnesses themselves, there wasn't a lot to decide here. They were either going to believe the prosecution's version that Hunter Biden did lie when he filled out that federal firearms form, or they were going to believe the defense case. And there wasn't a lot of evidence. It's a fairly short trial. And I'm not surprised at the verdict either. The prosecution tends to win about 80–90% of all the cases they bring in federal court. And in this case, there was a lot of evidence suggesting that Biden did break the law. The question was whether the jury would sympathize with Hunter Biden and just throw out the prosecution's evidence and decide in favor of Hunter Biden, and they chose to buy the prosecution's case.
Now, in a situation like this, where this is a first-time offender, where do you think the judge is going to go down as far as sentencing here?
I think it will likely be probation or some sort of home confinement. The law allows, if you add the maximums, for 25 years. And in most cases, they would not be stacked on top of one another like that, leading to 25 years. It might be 10 years as a maximum, a realistic maximum. The federal guidelines, which are merely an option for the judge, they don't have to follow him. The federal guidelines call for something around 1 year. But the fact that these cases, he's a first-time offender, and no one was hurt with the weapon, there was no injury involved, and cases like this typically are not even brought against a defendant, that all suggests that it's be very unlikely if he receives jail time.
You know, Larry, he was indicted on the 3 felony gun charges back in September after a proposed plea deal with federal prosecutors unraveled. So it's taken us a while to get to this point, but shocking that that initial deal unraveled.
Right. Well, you know, the judge was asked to take another look at this case, to take another look at the plea deal. All plea deals have to be approved by the presiding judge. And in this case, the judge says it just wasn't a fair deal for the prosecution, and suggested that even though it might benefit Hunter Biden to a great extent, it was not one that the government should accept. And the judge took it out of the party's hands and said, no, there's not going to be a plea deal on these terms. That doesn't mean they couldn't have later reached another plea deal before trial, but at that point, Biden's attorney said, no, we're going to take this to trial. They rolled the dice and they lost.
And President Biden has said in the past that he would not pardon his son if he was in fact found guilty. But now that he has found guilty, what reaction do you think we're going to get from the White House?
I think there'll be very little reaction. This was a federal case. The Justice Department has repeatedly said that they are independent of the White House and of the president, and that they don't make the calls in cases like this. Biden, I think, will express some sympathy, as any father would, for his son in this sort of situation.
Hey, Larry, I'm going to interrupt you here, Larry, very quickly, because we're taking a live look outside the Delaware courthouse. I misspoke earlier and said Manhattan. Delaware courthouse, where Hunter Biden is leaving the courtroom with First Lady Jill Biden and his significant other. He is he was holding each of them were on either side of him. He was holding their hands, stepping now into a black SUV to be escorted away. We were hoping to hear from either the defense or the prosecution. Larry, in your experience of these federal cases, do you think either of those attorneys will be speaking?
I think that the defense lawyers probably will issue a statement at some point. I think right now the Biden family wants to huddle together and decide upon what their best move is. I think they were probably hoping for a not guilty, and that didn't happen the way they expected. So I think they will huddle together. The defense attorney is very, how should I say, outspoken and likely to stress the elements of appeal in a case like this. And there are some real Second Amendment issues, that some of them pending right before the U.S. Supreme Court right now, that suggest that not Hunter Biden's conduct itself, but that the underlying statute on which he was brought might not be constitutional. And that is because the Supreme Court is examining under what situations a defendant gives up his Second Amendment rights to possess a weapon. And does his prior use of drugs or current use of drugs take away his Second Amendment rights? And that issue will be decided, and that could at some point void this entire conviction. So it'll be a while before we know whether the appeals stand up, and I'm sure that Hunter Biden will be out on appeal, out on bond during the appeal. So he's not going to be sentenced soon. If he is sentenced, he'll be released on bond pending his appeal, and the appeals will be substantial.
Larry, I do want to ask you, we are expecting an appeal here. Can you walk us through what does that process look like?
Well, typically they go to the Court of Appeals in the Delaware Appellate District, which would typically, I'm not sure what district they're in on the East Coast, but it will go to an appellate court, typically reviewed by 3 justices on the appellate court. And then depending on which way the decision goes, the defendant can ask for it to be reviewed by the entire number of justices on that appellate court. And then at that point, it could go to the U.S. Supreme Court, which only takes a very few number of criminal cases. And it would have to be a substantial issue for the U.S. Supreme Court to take a case like this. And as I said, they already have some kind of similar Second Amendment cases in front of them now, so they might have decided this issue before it comes to them in this particular case. But the appeal will likely take 6 months to a year, I would imagine, before it's argued in the appellate court, and then a couple months after that before it's decided by the appellate court on the East Coast.
So well after the election in November. Larry, thank you. Great context you've provided for us this morning.
Nice to see both of you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
As well. Thank you so much for your time, Larry.